Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Veronica, and today I want to watch a video with you that blew up last week that got BookTok all worked up. And I want to see with you if I agree that it is as bad as they made it out to be. And of course, it's this video. Most of you who click on this video probably have already seen it. You have your own opinion on it, but I want to see if I think that it is as bad as BookTok made it out to be, and if I agree or if I disagree. I'm probably going to chop it up a little bit with the points that I find worthy of discussing, because it's a book review, or review of books. And you are entitled to your opinion about the different books. So I probably jump over those and kind of suss out what it is that people are reacting to.
Ever wonder why your sweet, innocent friend is suddenly blushing at her Kindle?
I have read the dirtiest things.
Romantic books that are spice on spice on spice on spice.
Sometimes all you need is a seriously good steamy book.
These books are going to make you sweat in places you didn't know you could sweat.
Or why your girlfriend or wife is nose deep in literature seemingly out of nowhere?
So this one, the main character is sold to a high lord across the kingdom, and to assert his authority, he's like, you're gonna have to ride naked all the way to my kingdom.
My words to describe it and to convince you is everybody loves when a sailor comes home.
Like boom, 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 sauce, 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 sausage.
I'm here to tell you it's probably because of spicy #BookTok. Red hot carnival of lip-biting, taboo fantasies, and questionable covers.
It's about four brothers. They're all Irish. They're all in the mafia. They take in this one chick.
I mean,
who's
that's
a
what they
hacker,
all
and
look
they
like.
all have at her.
I read that book purely for the smart.
So strap in, or on, I'm sorry I had to do it. He was right there. And we're about to peek
right there.
under the covers of spicy BookTok. In fact, these spicy books that women are losing their undies over might as well require an 18+ verification ID, because my God, there's some smutty stuff going on TikTok. So I actually did pick up a few of these recommended books, and now I am educated and scarred. And
Yeah, I was
scared
gonna say
a little
scarred.
bit, and we're gonna get into that. But now, some of these books on spicy BookTok aren't too bad. Like, there's some steamy scenes here and there, but the books we're talking about today are the ones that have been just shoved into my face, and that focus less on any sort of plot and just more about getting down and dirty as much as humanly possible in the most unconventional and forbidden ways, if you will. And I just want to talk about
so she's reading
why
dark
that
romance.
is and why.
What she's talking about is usually labeled dark romance, and that is a subgenre that it takes quite a specific type of person. It's not for everyone. If this is her first dive into spicy books, that is going into the deep end, is all I'm saying.
Nearly obsessed with these naughty little page turners. And full disclaimer, this is not meant to shame or offend anybody that enjoys these books. It's your life, not mine. And I, for one, did read the books I'm about to talk about, and I would be lying if I said that I didn't enjoy a little saucy fling here and there, a little saucy fictional fling here and there. So that's just what this video is about. Just getting into it, getting into these books, what they're about, and just really dissecting why that is, But anyway, without further ado, let's get into the first book. And the first saucy book is the granddaddy of modern smut, the big kahuna, 50 Shades of Grey. So E.L. James took her Twilight fan fiction and said, what if Edward wasn't a vampire and instead was a billionaire that had...
I really try not to say anything because 50 Shades of Grey is so old. It is... it's been talked about, but I think that personally I wouldn't label 50 Shades of Grey as dark romance. Yes, he has problems, he has issues, whatever, the whole shebang, right? But I think a lot of people automatically places the book in dark romance simply because there is BDSM, and I think that is a little bit of a problematic approach to the whole thing. I think that if you have the view that just because something contains BDSM, it is all automatically dark romance, I think you should explore why you think that, because BDSM is a whole spectrum of things, and it could be from the darkest, actually exploring really extreme things, and it could also be, you know, super cozy, super sweet, caring approach, what that people just don't associate with dark. So just because something contains BDSM does not make it dark. And 50 Shades of Grey, on the grand scheme of things, is pretty vanilla. It might have elements of BDSM in it, but it's quite clear that the author doesn't really know anything about that life. You know, it is very much through a vanilla lens, and it's like, ooh, here's some spicy thing. It's like, ooh. But in actuality, the story or the whole book, it's not all that spicy compared to what we find a lot on BookTok. It's definitely pretty vanilla for BookTok specifically.
E.L. James, the author of the 50 Shades of Grey series, originally wrote a Twilight fanfiction story titled Master of the Universe, which served as a...
And she included that phrase in the book, and it is the most cringe thing I can ever... Like, don't include the title, you know, unless it is something that makes sense. If it's someone who says, he really looked like the master of the universe, which I think is the direct quote. It's cringe when it is that. I know way too much about this.
The basis for her obsess you, possess you, and stay with you forever. Isn't that the truth? Because I read this freaking book when I was 14 years old.
Oh no!
Oh
no.
God! I read it when I was 14 years old. I'm not going to say who gave it to
Where
me
were
because
your
they will
parents?
get in trouble. But
probably reading
somebody
it too,
gave
to
it
be
to me,
honest.
and I got in trouble.
Before we move on to next book, though, I do want to make clear that the writing in this book is atrocious. The amount of ellipses used should be a crime. I firmly believe that it should be a crime, and the fact that these books weren't edited properly, in one way, I think that opened the floodgates for these spicy books with terrible writing. Like, objectively, the craft of the writing is not as good as books used to be. And I'm not saying that I'm like, oh my God, back in my day. No, if you look at how books are written today, I think I mentioned this in a video before, and I'm considering making a video about it, how the spicy books of today are very reminiscent of fanfiction 15 years ago. The writing style, the type of tropes, the whole level of it is very similar. And I'm not saying that that necessarily makes them bad in the sense that fanfiction is bad, because I don't think that fanfiction is bad. But I think that people in the traditional book publishing that actually approve these books without any proper editing should be ashamed, not people who enjoy them. And that comes from a craft perspective.
That brings us to our next book, and that is Icebreaker. Icebreaker is the book that turned figure skating and hockey into hashtag BookTok's favorite slow burn love child. And the hype is unfreaking real. I have seen this book everywhere, literally everywhere. People love it. And I'm like, dude, I like hockey. I mean, I'm from Canada, but my God, like what's the hype about? Also, the cover looks like a kid's cover or something. I was confused,
though.
to say the least. But this was actually the first book I saw on Spicy BookTok, if you will, in that community. And I was just like, I got peer pressured. I was like, okay, man, shit, I'll read it, whatever. It looks innocent enough, but it's not.
It's definitely
It's not.
But this is my favorite book romance of all time.
The spice in this book is incredible. There's a lot of good girl in this, and I'm not opposed to that.
Okay, yes, like if you like it, it's fine. I do have some issues with the cover, not because it's not pretty, but I do think that it's not a problem that it is the way it is. I think it's a big problem that bookstores and libraries aren't aware enough of where they're putting this book. I don't think that that's on the author. I don't think that that's necessarily on the book publisher, unless the publisher, similar to Moss and Akotar, that they've like actually marketed that as YA when it's very clearly adult. If the publisher is doing that, the publisher is like the one at fault. But assuming that it is properly marked as adult, yes, the bookstores, the bookstores, the libraries, people who are selling this book, they need to, unfortunately, up their game in terms of awareness about these books. And I think that, unfortunately, this style of cover lends itself to misunderstanding. And whether that is on purpose or not, I'm gonna leave unsaid. But something I have noticed here on the videos that it gives me a little bit of an icky feeling, or not icky feeling, but something I would critique, is that she's using a lot of people's TikToks or videos, but the credits aren't there. Like usually on these videos, you see the handle so that you give credit to who they are. And I think that personally, I think that that's a little bit wrong to not include that. And I would have liked, even if clearly she's zooming in, but then add the out here in the side, whatever, what handle they have so that you give credit for the video. That I think is important. And I've noticed I don't think that any of the videos she's used so far has shown the handles to give credit. I repeated myself a lot. Let's move on.
Anyway, I fell for it, I read it, and here are my thoughts. Basically, we've got forced proximity, banter-fueled tension, and the inevitable, we're not supposed to do this, but I'm so into you. And the enemies to lovers trope, if you could even call it that, I guess. But it's just lacking overall in plot for me, and the amount of smut in this book is so unnecessary. And like, based off the cover alone, I wasn't expecting much, but it was a lot. Like 50 Shades, I was like, okay, like it's like maybe more taboo, but they just really piled it in there, and I was shocked, to say the least. But there are moments of actual good.
I am curious as to why she can't like an ice hockey player. Is that ever explained in this book? Because I'm curious as to why.
Good writing in it. There were plenty of characters, but maybe too many almost. Like I kind of got confused while reading it, and they also gave nicknames to everybody on top of their names, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Also,
okay. That gave me flashbacks to what's her name? Jenna Moressi's book, The Labyrinth. I can't remember what the name is, but her book had a lot of characters that you get the names for, and then their laurels, and then in the narrative those names and laurels are used interchangeable, and it was so confusing. So this is one of my pet peeves, is that I understand that you want to have a character that has a laurel or a title or a nickname, but you have to establish that character for me as a reader to remember it, to understand, like not understand, but to remember it. Think Game of Thrones. There were multiple characters with their names and titles and laurels and all of that stuff. For the most part, you still remember them because the book or TV series in this case, they took time to establish them for you so that you could remember, you could attach some sort of, familiarity to them. And they also didn't use them interchangeably, so that, king, queen, prince, whatever, lord, lady, but you had Lady Stark, not just Lady, I can't come up with anything right now, but that is a pet peeve for me, is that if you're going to have characters that you are using nicknames for, you need to have a smaller cast because you're going to confuse people. Pet peeve.
it was just, I knew where it was going the whole time. It didn't surprise me. I mean, it shocked me. Some of the scenes are crazy. But some women on TikTok have anointed this as the ultimate sports romance. But it's not just women that are saying this. It's children. Children are reading this book. But it doesn't surprise me, given that the cover looks as innocent as fucking Charlotte's Web. Like, I don't understand why or for what purpose this cover looks like that, because it does look like just like a Judy Blume book, but it's quite literally just straight up corn. It's corn, but it has literally been found in the children's sections of libraries. The thought of a little kid reading that. And I also became privy to the fact that there's an entire hockey smut masking as children's novels subgenre with unbearably unimaginable titles such as The Score, The Deal, The Mistake, Rookie Move, Wicked Serve, and Pucking Around.
I know,
that one makes me physically mad, and I love puns, okay? And also Behind the Net. Jail.
Also, I want to point out, behind the net, they were actually in front of the net. I know that's so not the point, but I just wanted to point that out.
Go to jail. But the list quite literally goes on forever. Like, there's so many of these like smut books masking as kids books kind of thing, and I don't understand. But for that reason alone, the reason being the lack of plot and the lack of self-awareness of having children's book covers, I'm giving this book a 0 out of 5 rancid smelling hockey skates. Let's move on. And the next book is called Birthday Girl, which also just sounds like super innocent fun, but this one is definitely getting into some questionable, almost illegal waters, okay? It is an age gap romance featuring a teenage girl and her boyfriend's father. A tale as old as time. But this premise has BookTok fangirls gasping and fanning their faces and their fannies. And some say it's taboo, but oh so good. And others say, I need brain bleach, and I'm in this category. But again, TikTok has just been eating it up.
Oh, am I attracted to this?
Okay, a lot of thoughts. Okay, first, I am not a big fan of age gap stuff, and 2, I hate the fact that people are calling the like reverse age gap, which just like makes me think of Benjamin Button, because like, what do you mean reverse age gap? Like, an age gap isn't gendered. I really, really, really dislike when it's always the fucking female character that is basically underage. It's not for me. If you like it, it's fine. Again, I refer you back to, you can like a book without thinking that it's good. In the sense that you can also recognize that it has problematic themes. It's not something that you should like follow up and try to make reality, but you can still enjoy it. That's perfectly fine. I think that you just need to, when you're marketing it, because what these people on BookTok who are making videos, you are marketing these books. Whether or not you're getting paid for it, you are marketing these books. That's what you're doing. And I think you need to be a little bit more self-aware in how you may present these books. Anyway.
19 and 38, that's a lot, especially when you were just 18 a day ago before you moved into this house.
What?
Crazy. Anyway.
Oh no, oh no, okay. I think I forgot to say this, but the whole thing with age gaps that really fucking bothers me is that the woman or the girl technically has to be literally as young as she can be. And that is so disgusting on many, many levels. But I can understand an age gap where people meet and they hit it off, whatever. I can understand that. Something that where I personally draw a line is when the adult has, or the older person, I should say, has known the younger one since they were a child. And by a child, I mean minor, not 10. It doesn't have to be that. But it's something that's where I draw the line. If you knew them before they were an adult, jail. Straight to jail. Straight fucking to jail. Personal opinion. But that's the line I draw. It's icky. It's just super bad. Problematic. Awful. etc. That's it. That's my rant.
But overall, the novel, it was a page turner. I enjoyed parts of it, but the forbidden love trope, once again, is just like, it falls flat because it's just like creepy. It's just a bit creepy. Especially when she just reverts back to that like teenager self. It just feels like this guy's taking advantage of her, I guess. And it feels yucky to me personally. Here's a little cringy quote from it though. "I knew you were out there somewhere," I tell her, quirking a sad smile. "The girlfriends, women I dated, Cole's mother. I never wanted to marry anyone because they weren't what I was looking for. I had started to think I had my sights set too high, and you didn't exist." I clasped the back of my neck and run my thumbs down her throat. Ew. "Turns out my dream girl belongs to the one person it would kill me to hurt. My son." Stop. But this age gap romance probably just feels normal to most spicy book talkers because this is like child's play, pun intended, to a lot of those readers, and it just is what it is, you know? Which is fine. I mean, there's like plenty of tropes, horror movie tropes, you know, spicy book talk tropes or whatever, but maybe let's not collectively pretend that it's normal. In real life, that is. But I totally understand that, oh my god, it's so bad, but it's so right, you know? It feels so right. Because it's fiction. So that's like, who cares really at the end of the day? But real life, be a whole other thing. It'd be on the news maybe. But every time I see a father figure romance, I feel like I need to schedule a therapy session after, you know? But I also can't deny that it can be entertaining. Let's just not make it the blueprint for real life relationships. Next up, Credence. This is another book by Penelope.
No. Absolutely not. I'm still confused as to why people are so up in arms about this video, because so far she hasn't said anything that other people on BookTok hasn't already said, you know? But I want to bring attention to the point that Chris was making before she showed this atrocity. It's fiction, it's fine, just make sure that it doesn't become the blueprint for reality. And I know a lot of people who are deep into the taboo stuff. I messed myself up. The taboo stuff, I say like, yeah, but of course you can tell fantasy from fiction. And I would argue that most people can. The problem is that there are people who can't. And especially when these books ends up in the hands of very young people, they have not learned to differentiate these things. Especially when they go online and they see full adults talking about this without condemning the negative aspects of it and or the abuse and the problematic. They just see, oh my god, it's so good, it's so hot, it's so nice, blah blah blah. And they see, oh, so this is normal, this is desirable, because young people model themselves after adults. That's what they do. They try to find out what is okay, what is not, etc., etc. So it's a whole complex topic. I understand that there's more nuance to it, but I think that people, unfortunately, don't take, I forget the word, but you know, there's no long-term thinking and the domino effect that certain things can have. That doesn't mean that you can't enjoy these. I am simply asking that people who are promoting these things on social media actually own some of that accountability to make sure that the problematic stuff are brought up. Make it an even thing. Like, oh my god, I love it. It's so spicy. Woo! It was amazing. Just keep in mind, it had some problematic themes, but I still really love it. That is perfectly fine. Some sort of acknowledgement of that this is not normal. Shouldn't be the norm. That's not something that you should model your life after. Some sort of acknowledgement to that is all I ask. But jumping to the next one.
So finally, last and certainly least, a true crime psychological analysis deep dive worthy book masking itself as a dark romance novel. 24,690. Sounds like an inmate number, doesn't it? It's because it is. Strap in. Or on. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that.
Ever read a book that makes you feel like a little off for liking it? Like, maybe I need therapy? If you like that kind of thing, I got the book for you.
She's not doing this. She's...
I wouldn't even call this a dark romance. If you thought Haunting Adeline was bad, do not touch this series. It is pitch black. It has severe trigger warning.
I'm not trying to be traumatic, but what the fuck?
But this book was just quite literally torture smut with like a sprinkle of illegal forbidden love plot, and I need to bathe in bleach after reading it. It's just, I can't really comprehend how people can praise this book at all, and honestly, it kind of just concerns me more than anything. But
this is the part that BookTok doesn't like, I assume, because BookTok can't take criticism and they attach so much of their identity to this community and to the type of books they're reading, and haven't really dealt with the detaching themselves from this, so that whatever people think about what they're reading is irrelevant because it's not who they are. So when someone criticizes a book that they like, it's not a criticism of them. I can make a whole video about it. I'm considering doing that. But my spidey senses are tingling here that this is the section that people really don't like, because whenever someone just criticizes or brings up a worry, a legit worry, they tend to come with like needles out. BookTok does have the reputation that people outside of the community don't dare to make content on it because of the severe negative reaction BookTok has on the regular. And I don't think that that's a good thing. I know a lot of people view that as empowering and like beating back against the bullies, but okay, I'm getting into the video that I'm considering making, which clearly I have a lot to say, so I should be. But yeah, I think that it's something that people in the community, and I am part of this community, I really enjoy spicy romance books. I think a lot of people in the community needs to ask themselves why they're reacting so poorly to this, because when people criticize books I like or talk shit about the books I like, it's not a criticism of me. It doesn't reflect on me. I don't have any internalized, oh, I shouldn't be reading this. Therefore, people who criticize people who are reading this, whatever this is, isn't a reflection on me. It doesn't bother me because I don't have any internalized, essentially, shame surrounding it. And I think a lot of people who are reading spicy romance still hasn't dealt with that internalized shame regarding being sexual creatures and seeking pleasure and being okay with that and reclaiming that for themselves, because all of that is good stuff. But there is an internalized shame that we all need to deal with in order to move past that. So I think a lot of people in the BookTok community struggle with that. And that's why they react very poorly whenever someone even remotely brings up an issue, criticism that is, I'm worried for the people who are reading this type of thing. Anyway, back to Chris.
I'm going to play devil's advocate and go to the other side of the coin, and I understand that if women and men read and consume these types of books, they just become really desensitized, and it's just kind of natural to keep wanting more and more steamier or like borderline disturbing material to excite you. And it's just a very human characteristic, a characteristic many of us share, either with spicy books, true crime, for example,
drugs,
horror movies, corn sites, or whatever. And that's why when I say I don't want to shame people, I really do mean it. This isn't meant to shame anyone, you know? I like some of these books, I'm not gonna lie. Because literally everybody does this kind of thing to a certain degree, whatever your vice is. But I think it's just about having the wherewithal to know when it's beginning to be too much and just not letting it rot your brain and affect your outside life. And for me, the book 24,690 was just too much. And again, that's just personally. If it's not too much for you, and if you can go about your day, you know, swinging your cane and tipping off your top hat, Cool. Liked it. That's your shit, dude. But I'm personally gonna give it a negative 5 million out of 5. What the actual I get it's totally human nature to just kind of like love the forbidden stuff and everything. And if you have any book recommendations, let me know down below. I kind of want to do more book reviews. I like having to read. Doesn't necessarily need to be, you know.
It kind of sucks because she wanted to make more book reviews, and I don't think that she's going to do it, considering the minefield BookTok has created with these types of things. So that kind of sucks. That kind of sucks. Let's take a look at some reviews. Comments. Okay, let's take a look at some comments. I stand by the fact that I don't think that Chris is saying anything that people in the BookTok community hasn't already said about themselves. And I think it boils down to the fact that people don't perceive Chris as being part of the community, and therefore is viewing her as an outsider criticizing them, as opposed to someone in the community themselves just making fun, and it is what it is. I will judge parents who allow their 10-year-old to read these types of books. Absolutely. Yes. Parents need to be more engaged with their children and what they're consuming. 100%. As someone who reads smut, for me it's just a break from the story. I find it hard to just focus on the story the whole time, so smut is a relief. But also, I'm also someone who absolutely hates it when a book only has smut and no plotline. I think this is very fair. I think that people perceive those scenes as a break to the plot. Personal opinion on it is that then that is a poorly written book. If the smut scenes don't make sense in the grand scheme of the plot line, as in it's furthering things, it makes sense to the plot, etc., then I would personally feel like that book is part of erotica, because then it's just sex for the sake of sex. Whereas I personally believe that, or see it as, if you want to have a spicy romance, then the smut should definitely further the relationship, other than like, oh, we had sex, so now therefore we are in a relationship. That's not how anything works. I want to make it clear, I do write spicy romance under a pen name, and all links down below, by the way. And what I prefer is when the plot doesn't stop just because they're doing it. It is something that there's a give and take, there's a still continuous conversation throughout, or as part of the smut, and that for me furthers the relationship. There's a show of their personalities and how they interact, etc., even in a intimate, vulnerable state. That's the kind of stuff I like, because it's a sign of a very healthy, mature connection. But I do understand that people want maybe a break from the plot, and that's fine. I personally don't think that that makes it fall into spicy romance, because I do agree with the people who say that you need to have a plot line through it. But if the smut parts are just section where the plot is taking a break, I don't believe that that fits into the smut actually making sense and furthering the plot. Also, Icebreaker comes with as many age warnings as a bottle of alcohol, so if anyone is missing the cover for children's book, the publisher have tried to flag the content with potential buyer. That is really good. I do appreciate that. That's very true. Children who picks this up is not going to pay attention to that. People in a bookstore isn't going to stop a 10-year-old from buying the book because capitalism. But parents need to be aware of this. Even if you're not going to read the book, at least pick it up, check if there's any trigger warnings, do a quick Googling. The information is out there. If you're not even going to Google the book that your child is reading, if you don't want to read it yourself, what are you doing? Show some interest in your kid. Okay. Anyway, I do appreciate that the publisher has actually done its due diligence. So it's a good thing to know, and it does become an addendum to what I was saying earlier. Why read smut books knowing you don't like smut? Logic is out the door. That is not what she's saying. She very specifically, repeatedly said that she does enjoy some spicy romance books, and she did like parts of these books that she read. People are allowed to not like the books that they are reading. Here's the deal, right? People read books that they like, and then they venture outside of those to try new books, and they will find ones that they like and ones they dislike. And these just happens to be books that she didn't necessarily like. And that doesn't mean that she is cursing the entire spicy book community or all spicy books. In nowhere in this video did she say all people who read spicy books are mentally ill. Or did she say we should ban all spicy books? No, stop reacting like she's having the pitchfork and leading the goddamn mob. She is not. People are allowed to push their own boundaries by testing books that goes a little bit further. That is the way people find like, that went too far. That doesn't mean that she doesn't like smut books. It's just like that one went too far. Great. Now I have something to compare to and ask like, hey, is this book on the same level as this book? Great. I'm not going to read it because it's too far for me. Stop it. Calm down. My last point is essentially that first and foremost, there's a lot of complex feelings regarding this, and there's a lot of nuance and angles and all of that stuff. But boiled down is that romance used to be shamed. It used to be this suppressed thing because women and all of that stuff. That used to be the case. And I understand that people were fiercely defensive of women being allowed to read at all, but also specifically romance and spicy romance or stuff that is generally considered female coded. And I understand that fierce fighting and protection of that space. I do. However, over the past, let's say, 10 years, romance and spicy romance has exploded onto the mainstream stage. Romance and spicy romance is no longer that suppressed group. Spicy romance and romance in general is the mainstream. So the moment romance took the step onto that stage, this behavior is no longer protective. It is bullying. You are now the aggressor as opposed to the defender. And I think a lot of people aren't really understanding that, or they're uncomfortable with that aspect or truth. It is something that you have to consider and deal with internal, like by yourself, because that is how the landscape has changed. And I really hope that people are able to sit with the fact that romance aren't or isn't suppressed. It's not threatened anymore. It is so mainstream, arguably is the mainstream. And therefore, we need to consider how we treat other people, and we need to make space for criticism. We need to make space for people to have a difference of opinion. Again, very complex topic, very boiled down, but I felt like I wanted to have that said. But thank you very much for being here. If you like this type of content, make sure to hit subscribe. And please drop your comments down below. I would love to hear from you what your thoughts on the subject is. Otherwise, I hope you have a good day and night, wherever you are in the time stream. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.